Welcome to Paranormal Latte Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Kelly Renee Schutz. Sit back and relax with us. Grab yourself a really good drink. Spend an hour and let's delve into a world of chatter about the mysteries of the unexplained. Whether you are a skeptic or a believer makes no difference. It's not always in your imagination. Enjoy your day. Now that was good. We are broadcasting on the United Public Radio and UFO Paranormal Radio Networks, 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. The views and opinions expressed by the host and guests do not necessarily reflect those of the audience, United Public Radio and UFO Paranormal Radio Networks, its hosts, affiliates, and or Paranormal Latte Podcast, Paranormal Universal Press LLC, and Diamond Point Entertainment LLC. This show is pre-recorded. Now that was good. Good day, everyone, and thanks again for listening to yet another episode of Paranormal Latte Podcast. My name is Dr. Kelly Renee Schutz. I am the host and the producer of this show. Today we have with us Josh Morris. He is quite a seasoned investigator, and he has been known in the field for a very, very long time. So why don't we learn just a little bit more about him and run that introduction on him? Please welcome Josh Morris. My featured guest is Josh Morris. Josh has more than 25 years of experience in the paranormal field. He is a seasoned researcher, investigator, and storyteller. In the early 2000s, he co-founded the team Bumps in the Night, which quickly gained recognition after ghost hunters asked them to handle preliminary residential cases in the Florida Panhandle. From that moment, Josh and his team dedicated themselves to helping families cope with unexplained activity. In 2019, he added author to his title with the release of My Paranormal, A Guide to Spirit Realms, which has sold internationally in both paperback and ebooks. On screen, Josh's work has reached audiences through Paraflixx, where he starred in ParaXplorerZ, along with short films like Trick or Sheet and Ghostly Footsteps. His latest project, TEPs Investigates, is currently in production and streaming exclusively on Paraflixx. We had a lot to talk about this evening, so sit back and grab yourself something warm to drink as we go head on head with my special and featured guest, Josh Morris. Well, good evening, Josh, and thank you so very much for being on the show today.
Hello. Hey, how's it going?
Oh, it's so nice to see you again. Josh and I met at the Rock Island Haunted Esoteric Expo, or, I mean, the name may stay, I think, what was it? Roadhouse Esoteric Expo.
It's a long name.
It is a long name. I can't ever remember the middle piece. That's the whole thing. But we met there, and I'm very glad we did, because we found that we had a lot in common and kind of walked down the same road with each other. And so we're gonna talk tonight a little bit and have you get to know him a little bit. So, Josh, the very first thing I want to start out with, of course, is tell everybody, even though we had a great introduction on you, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, where you're at, and we'll go from there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And again, I appreciate you letting me be here. And it was nice meeting you. You're an absolute wonder. I love when we met. My name is Josh Morris. Of course, I have originally, I got into paranormal in my teens and really started to pick up a variety of just books, whatever I could kind of read. And then, I got to the point where I wanted to start a team back in the early 2000s, and then the television shows hit. Mm-hmm. So one of the first shows that was out there was a show called Ghost Hunters, and from the team TEPs. And we were fortunate enough to be contacted to do preliminary investigations for the show. So that was a huge thing for us. We're like, oh my God, we had just started as a team. And so it was amazing to be able to go out because, you'd contact these clients and they would just think you're from the show because that's where they submitted their information to. Mm-hmm. So you got treated like royalty a lot of times. And it was really cool to go there, investigate these places, and then report back to the case manager, which was Donna LaCroix back then, for TEPs. So, but that's where I got my start in there. And then over the years, in these last really like 30 years altogether that I've really been involved in paranormal, it's just been, a lot of investigations, going out there. And then in this last 8 years, I started doing a podcast called the Everything Paranormal Show. And then I ended up getting with Paraflixx about, 4 or 5 years ago when they first started. And I had an original series called ParaXplorerZ. I also ended up writing a book. Shameless plug. But my book, there, I wrote a book. And I didn't really set out to be an author, which we can talk about later. But I just had to I couldn't make a long enough video for all my theories. So I was like, well, I'm going to have to write a book. So I wrote a book that became an international seller. And just like I said, I've just been kind of around doing things, and I try to take more of a mentorship role nowadays with other teams, other younger teams. I'm getting to that age. Mm-hmm. So now I do have a regular original series on Paraflixx called TEPs Investigates. I also have YouTube and all that stuff, but it's just really brought my career to where it's just, I can work with a lot of people and play that mentor role now.
Yeah, I can relate to you. I have seen myself also evolve over time as well. I mean, I was just the individual going through a lot of experiences and wrote my first book. Now that's turned into 12 books, and I've been on some films with some of the situations that I've been through that are very dramatic, and I don't know. I find it interesting. It's an interesting, I don't know if we want to call this a field. The phenomena that we go through, sometimes I'm not even sure on my own behalf what I'm always experiencing, but we'll talk a little bit about your thoughts on that as we move along here. So when you go back in time, how old were you, and what did you have an experience? And then is that what started you, not necessarily out, but brought in some of that curiosity, and then you wanted a little bit more to see what happened and when, how old were you?
Right. Well, I think there was a few different incidences, and again, I do actually lay them out in the beginning of my book. My book is kind of like the first kind of maybe third is like autobiography, and then the rest is like theory. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm not trying to plug my book, but what I talk about in there is that there was these particular moments throughout my childhood and teenage years and things like that ended up pushing me into that. So to answer your question for sure is probably when I was a kid. I'm not sure about the exact age. I mean, it was old enough to be conscious enough of things, maybe 10, 11, 12 years old. But my grandparents, I was raised by my grandparents, and they had an old farm that they would use for hunting. It was 80 acres in Michigan. It was in the middle of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And so this farm, there was no running water, no electricity. We used to use the outhouse. Mm-hmm. We had wash basins. It was old-fashioned living. Whenever we were there, it was old-fashioned living. So it was really cool as a kid. It was fun. Mm-hmm. And But we would lay there at night sometimes, and I would be in my bed, and they were like in the same room because, you know, it's a very small farmhouse, and they were in their bed, and I was in like my little single cot thing or whatever. Mm-hmm. And you could literally hear a couple people talking, walking around the house, and you could hear their conversation. But the funny thing is that there would be snow on the ground, and you could hear the footsteps. You could, and at first, when I remember when I was really young, my grandma would wake up my grandpa, and she'd be like, "Walter, you need to go out there. Go. What is that? Like, go see who's out there." Mm-hmm. And of course, you know, Grandpa being the loving man he was, he would get up and go out there, half dressed, get on his galoshes or whatever, and get his flashlight, and he'd walk out there, and there was like never any footprints in the snow, and you can't just sneak up on our property. I mean, we're out in the middle of nowhere. It's a dirt road on top of that, but it's like winter, snow, you know. But I think for me, what really set that in stone was that my grandparents' reaction. Over the years, they didn't make me feel scared about it. They just kind of were more casual, like, well, that's the ghost. And so it really sparked my curiosity over the years. And so it was almost like it was an accepted thing that ghosts were real, and it was just the ghost, and there was nothing to really worry about. So I think that's where the true start of everything was.
You know, what's interesting about that, and I was trying to think about this the other day, the word ghost. The very first time I may have heard the word used as ghost, I just do not remember how old I was when, like, I would say something like this: "What's a ghost? You know, what do you mean? What is a ghost?" Around that age that you were, did you understand when they were saying, "Oh, that's just a ghost" or whatever? Did it just kind of hit you like, "Oh, I kind of know what they're talking about"? Or did you ever wonder, what are you talking about? What's a ghost? You know, did you ever go through that?
Well, I don't know if anybody ever explained to me exactly what a ghost was.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it was in the context clues of, so anybody that grew up in like the 70s or 80s and stuff, you know, we had like Red Skeleton ghost stories. And, you know, anybody knows the Red Skeleton, he had a book for like, was ghost stories. There was a lot of things that were mentioning ghosts, you know, and a lot of pop culture, maybe like Scooby-Doo, you know, things like that, you know.
Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Yeah, I mean, so I think there was enough out there at the time to at least convey that message about ghosts. So when my grandparents talked about it and ghost stories, I think that it was pretty understood. For me, it was kind of opposite of, I would get more confused when people would say spirits. I didn't know. I knew more what ghosts were than spirits. When they were talking about spirits, I'm like, is that ghosts? Like,
exactly.
I was a kid. I'm like, what are spirits? Like, is that supposed to be different? I don't know. So.
No, actually, I felt the same way. Because I don't even know when that came in, or if somebody was just trying to title something differently and it just stuck and kind of went viral, you know, with people, and that's that. But is there really a difference between a ghost and spirits? I don't know. I kind of lump them into the same category. Did you ever figure out if there's any difference between them?
I tend to use spirit as a little bit of a catch-all at times now, but I think if I had to categorize them, I would say that ghosts are more human. Like that would be like the human spirit, so to speak, would be a ghost. Whereas, you know, if maybe you could get into like elementals, or, you know, depending on your beliefs, you know, you could probably call those like spirits, things that are supernatural, but maybe not human spirits. I guess if that makes, or human ghost. That would be what I could also say is, so I think everything gets lumped into that spirit category. if it's supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
But I think ghost specifically to me represents human.
Mm-hmm. I know that when I was around age 14, 15, something like that, maybe 16. I know that I can relate to the old farm property. My grandparents had one out in the rural area, and it was Dutch colonial, so it looked a little spooky. But they built it from ground up and all that. But I used to sit and watch, sitting in the car when my dad would have to go to talk to them for whatever reason. I would be sitting there trying to see something visual, even translucent. I would have been happy with, but not ever anything solid though, because solid to me would have confused me. More translucent. When you're on it was your grandparents' farm, right? Was that it? That the farm?
Yeah, it was like a farm. We called it we would refer to it as the farm.
The farm.
It had like a barn and outhouse, and it was technically an old farmhouse.
Mm-hmm. Were you ever looking for something visual?
I mean, I think for me, I always was looking for something visual, just for some kind of confirmation.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, I think confession time, but I think I only visually seen a ghost maybe twice in my life, to be honest with you. I mean, I've seen a lot of dark shadows and things, but as far as what I would consider seeing an actual ghost, I feel like for me, it's only been like twice.
Mm-hmm. Well, now that I think about it too, I mean, I have. I've photographed apparitions in a screen window, which are very clear. But I was also, and I'm going to ask you about this because you do a lot of investigations. Are you familiar with, I refer to it as an electrical cobweb. Like you're walking through something very electrical, and it's like woof, and then you just kind of light up and tingle all over. And sometimes the tingling is very strong, and sometimes it's very weak. There are times when I walk through, or I'm near or by, or whatever, and I'm going to ask you your thoughts on that in just a moment. When I actually have seen the image of a apparition go around a corner and was able to remember the details enough to match that up with the face of something that I would find that used to reside there a long time ago. Have you ever experienced what I'm referring to as that electrical walking through that mesh and just kind of, whoa, lighting up a little bit?
Oh yeah. I think for me, I think a lot of seasoned veteran investigators would agree that over the years, whether you want to be more of a medium or psychic, whatever, even if you don't, you're going to have intuition. And over the years, you're going to develop it naturally, or you're going to consciously develop it. I've always tried to consciously develop it over the years, but yeah, I mean, there's times when I'll go into places and you just hit that energy. You just run into it. I had, in fact, just yesterday or 2 days ago, I was working at my day job. Okay, now my day job, I get to go into people's houses and I get to fix their internet. Okay, ghost hunting doesn't pay bills. Okay, so I was in their house and it was just the customer, the wife, was at home, and she was sitting on the couch, and I was in the living room with her, but I was like at the TV that's where the internet lines came in, and I was working on that, and we're just sitting there. It's really quiet, and all of a sudden I hear this like thump, and then on top of the thumps from above was floorboards creaking. So it was almost like somebody got up and took a couple steps. They were heavy-footed, very large people or something, whatever, very heavy-footed, and the floorboards creaked. And I'm like, it was enough for me to be like, whoa. And I said, is your husband home? And she's like, no. She's like, our house is haunted.
Oh, God. Did she say that to you?
Oh, yeah. And she instantly knew. And she was just like, matter of fact, like, yeah, we're used to it. And she said, there's nobody home. It's just me. and we have a cat, and he's right here, you know. And so for me, it was like, wow, I always loved that but the investigator in me was like, I just heard something so loud. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like something falling over. Mm-hmm. So to finish up what you're saying, so I asked her, do you mind if you take me upstairs and show me? Because, you know, I mean, I didn't have any business up there. Yeah. She was like, oh, yeah. So she took me up there, and I got to the doorway of that room that was above me, and it just hit me. The energy was pouring out of that room so large. I was like, oh, my God. I mean, I had goosebumps. And it was like, and I had half my body sticking in the room, and that half was just lighting up. Goosebumps, the hairs were standing up. Everything was like just tingling. It was crazy. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it happens, like, and you'll get that. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Like and sometimes you don't even know. You'll just be walking through a place. You'll walk through a door, and boom, you just get hit with it. And it'll happen differently. Sometimes it's tingly. Sometimes it's very prickly. Mm-hmm. There's different things. It's almost like that uncomfortable, like when you get the pricklies after your arm falls asleep, and it starts to come back a little bit, and you get those weird prickly feelings, versus a tingling and stuff. So it's depending on what happens. That's also part of that intuition training too. People can start associating when you get the pricklies versus the tingling, where it's at your body and all that stuff. But anyways.
Yeah, I have had a few encounters of that. Yes, I had levitated actually in a movie theater. Probably the most wicked feeling ever. Have you ever seen the movie The Pope's Exorcist, the one with Russell Crowe as the doing whatever he's doing? Did you ever see that movie?
Yeah, it's kind of newer, but yeah, like, you know, like, yeah.
A few years back, just a couple years back, he was chanting at the end of the movie to this kid, trying to exorcise him or whatever they're trying to do, obviously. And all of a sudden, I became activated. And when I activate, I have extreme tingling, but this was like the prickles. And that this was intense prickles and all over my body. I couldn't stop. I was actually kind of shaking a little bit, and then I started to lift up a little bit. I probably lifted up about I don't know, I'd say probably a quarter to a half inch off my chair, a little bit like this, and my husband wasn't noticing, and there was only two other people in the movie theater. But the thing is whatever was going on with me at the time, I could not explain. And it happened at the end of that movie when he was intensely chanting, and my whole body just went whoosh. I think when we got home, I think I asked him to put the holy water on me, and it burned. And then I think after that point, I reached out to a couple demonologists or whatever to ask them what they thought happened to me in that situation, because I wasn't expecting that at all. So that brings me back to a question to you. Do you think this energy that we encounter like that, or when you walked right through it, do you think that was an actual apparition or apparition standing there and you walked right through their body? Some people think, oh, you must have walked through an apparition. I don't know if that's really the case. What do you think that energy is when you come face to face with it and all that? What do you think it is?
Well, I think I don't necessarily think it's the actual embodiment of the spirit itself. Like, I just think that it's the area that's electrified. I mean, think about it. Like when we have brain waves, we know we can emit alpha waves from our body. We know we can extrude that from our body physically. We have an aura. It's even been photographed. Like there's aura photographing. Mm-hmm. So we know that we can extrude things from our physical presence. So I think that spirits in general, again, and I don't know the rules, I just know that it just seems like the area of energy is bigger than a physical body or something, than that. So I just don't think it's the physical body itself. But when you get in that area, that room, or sometimes even the whole house, some areas just have that energy, and it's amazing. And yeah, I think there could be some concentrated parts where you could probably identify spirits in those areas, but no, I think when you hit that energy, it's just that barrier, that that circumference of that energy.
Do you think that it's possible to have residual energy that can elicit a similar type of experience versus an intelligent possibility of having an intelligent apparition, or whatever you want to call it, consciousness hanging about, also doing that? Do you think they would have different outcomes depending on what they are? Are you following me on that?
No. I think you're right, and I think this is where an investigator would have to. So residual versus intelligent. If you have, let's say I go to a hotel and every time I go into a room, there's energy. That's probably residual. Now, could that energy fade off and on? Sure. Because depending on, who knows, maybe moon cycles, maybe it comes and goes. Maybe the time of day, things like that. But if you consistently can get that energy to reoccur all the time, most likely, yes, it's probably residual energy. Mm-hmm. Now, intelligent, obviously, if you are moving around and it's following you or appearing in different places of the home, this is where an experienced investigator will be able to start to document these things mentally, and even if some people take notes. But mentally, as you go around homes, you can start to assess those and say, you know what? I've noticed that this energy seems to be moving around. Maybe it might be following one of my female investigators. Maybe it's following, a particular person. This is what a team leader does with an investigation team, is you start to assess the situations, whether it's residual, whether is it an individual team member. Maybe you're gonna, like one thing I did at the Glenn House recently was you start to move around different team members and say, well, you know what, this combination of two people seems to get the most out of this room, or the most reaction. Or in one case, I had a room that didn't like a particular investigator because they had facial hair that reminded them of an abuser. Mm-hmm. So, but when I had a female with me, I got a lot more response because that female was like a motherly figure. So again, it's knowing the difference of the energies, whether they're moving around, whether they're following particular people, whether they're negative, responsive. There's a lot to assess but that's the difference between experienced investigators and lead investigators and not, is knowing where and how to assess all those situations so you can make the best investigation and extract the most information.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. You bring up a good point here. I was just thinking as you were talking, how many investigations have I actually participated in? I think one. And it was with too many people. And so when you have too many people, at least from my perspective, I think that can water down or can also affect possible results. I know that I'm a beacon, so it seems like something is going to show to me at some point in some way. So my question to you is, how many people, since you do a lot of investigating, how many people do you think is too many, or what do you think is the right amount, or how do you divide them up, or what do you do? Because I just know that I attract everything, so I don't really do a lot of investigations.
Sure. No, that's a good question. And I think, so it comes down, I really do believe it comes down to just experience as well. It just takes time, because I wasn't always a decent leader. I wasn't always good at doing things. But now I've gotten through all of the investigations. It's kind of one of those where there's a lot of things to think of. So a lot of more of your amateur investigators or your first timers, they focus more on, okay, I'm going to put, like, you two go here and do this experiment. and then they just hope that they get something. And then they say, okay, you two go here, you do this. And they kind of just shoot around in the dark. And if they get something cool, whatever. But your more experienced people are going to look and say, okay, why were we getting responses here? Who was getting the responses? What, like, was it because we had a female and a male? Was the female getting responses out of this team? And you start to move around members based on, okay, let me try this combination in this part of the house or this part of the building. And then you just have to analyze constantly. I sit back a lot more when I'm a leader on an investigation because I'm constantly analyzing and observing the teams. And I listen to what they say when they come back. I say, what did you guys get? Who was responding to who? And they're like, well, this person was responding or whatever. So it's a lot to juggle, but that's where you're truly going to get your best investigations and your best leaders. So in the end, a good leader would be like when you go to an investigation, even as a guest, and you feel like you were important to the investigation and you enjoyed it, you had fun, and you feel like you contributed. That's the best kind of investigation. So that way everybody feels good. They investigated, they all got utilized. And eventually that's what's going to pay off the most. As far as to finish up with what you were saying about how many's too many, I kind of look at the rule of like, kind of like just the size of the place. When you're in a small home, it's kind of more intimate. Mm-hmm. And so, you might only have 2 or 3 people that you're going to bring on your team. You get to like some huge, insane asylum that's got multiple floors. Mm-hmm. You can start pushing it out to 4 to 8 people or whatever, however many people you want. And then I like to personally run 2-man teams. I like to put 2 people out in a particular area, a room, experiment. And a lot of it, the beginning part of my investigation is just seeing which teams get the responses. It's just a lot of exploratory in the first part. Then after, and we take breaks and we assess things. And after a while, the second half is, okay, now that I know that certain people are getting responses in certain places of the building, let's try to change up the teams and see if we can extract even more things like that. So it's just a matter of that type of experience, feeling things out, using your intuition, like we talked about earlier, like going back to intuition. Mm-hmm. As you develop it over the years, using that intuition to also help guide and assess a team situation, like an investigation.
Do you think that it's important to have at least 1 or 2 psychics on a team? Because, psychics or mediums don't always agree with each other. And so when you're looking for specific things, I want to go back to the example of you in that house doing working on that TV and then hearing the floorboard and all that, and then going up there and going whammo, right? And right smack dab. What was the reaction of the homeowner? Obviously she probably came up there with you, but what was her reaction when did you say, whoa, I felt that, or did you explain you were also an investigator and that you had some expertise? What was her reaction?
So just to follow up on that, and I want to get into the psychic medium thing. Yes, the first reaction was like, once she told me like, oh, her house was haunted.
No.
And it was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, then I went out to my work truck, and I got one of my business cards. And I went to her and said, by the way, since this happened, this is a good person that happened in front of. Mm-hmm. And I give it to her, and she's like, oh my God. So that was really cool. Then I went up and then I went to each kid's room up there because all the upstairs was her kids' rooms. Yeah. Master bedroom was downstairs. So I went to each room, but that room initially where the noises were, mm-hmm. and she had ended up confessing that they had captured something on film there or like mm-hmm. on a photograph in the window. Well, that's the room that had still a massive amount of energy. I went to the other ones. I stood up in the other few rooms. I really didn't feel any energy. Like, I just didn't feel it. But that room was pouring full of energy. And I told her that. And I explained it to her. And she was like, okay. So, and then I went back there today, actually, this morning. I had to go back there for my work. And so I was able to be like, hey, did you talk to your husband about me? And she was like, yeah, So they're talking about having us out there, just to do some more investigating and stuff like that. So, but I want to get back to like what you're talking about, the team psychic thing,
Using psychic mediums.
Getting ready to ask a question about that. and I would say that, do you need to have a psychic or medium on your team? And I would say, I'm gonna make some people mad, and I'm gonna say no. I rarely work with psychics or mediums on my team over the years. Now, I will preface it by saying I have worked with psychics and mediums, and I don't mind it if I have them available to be on my team. Then the way I treat them this is the way I treat all mediums and psychics. I will exclude them from any pre-briefing knowledge. Be in the dark.
Right.
And I will let them go in and do a walkthrough. A lot of times I will film it. I will go in there with them and I will film a walkthrough with them. And I will let them feel out everything. And the way I look at it is, I don't think it's black and white. I don't think a medium or psychic is going to go into a place. They might pick up on something that the homeowners or me or something we can't validate. I can't just say, oh, you're wrong. Like if they say, oh, well, I'm getting this, but then I know that the activity is in a different room, that doesn't mean they're wrong. But I give them a chance to go through, do all that. And then we do the investigation. We find out what we find out. And then at the end, we kind of line up everything. And, I think it's a bonus to have a psychic or medium, but I don't think it's necessary per se, but it is a bonus. If you happen to have a good psychic or medium, then, and I always take it with a grain of salt, and I just treat them a little differently. And I don't like to give them any information. A lot of them don't want it. They really don't. And then, like I said, we'll just go through and then we'll compare notes at the end and see where everything lies.
All right, here's one for you. The favorite topic of them all, or the debate of them all, children. Children, some people say, oh, they're little demons in disguise. Children, oh, that's not really a child, it's something else. Oh, it is a child. Oh, gee whiz. Oh, I feel vulnerable right now. Oh, I feel sorry for the child. What I know that with all of your investigations, you probably have encountered children or a child or whatever. And how did you conclude that the child was or was not some type of a trickster or whatever? Take it from there.
Well, I'll just say this. I don't trust any ghost. I tell everybody, I tell all my team, take everything with a grain of salt. Okay? Don't ever believe any spirit, even if they seem like they're your grandmother. Just be open-minded. Like, okay, I don't like, let's say I had the opportunity to investigate Graceland, right?
Yeah.
When I run the spirit box, does that mean I'm going to go, Elvis, is that you? I hate that, because I've been in so many homes. Like, I don't care who it is, whether you're in Lizzie Borden's place, whether you're in Graceland, whether you're in the Winchester, it doesn't matter. Like, you can't assume who you're talking to. There's so many times over the years where the people I talk to have nothing to do with the famous history of there. When you're there, you stand out as a beacon in the darkness. Spirits are going to come to you. And it doesn't matter how famous the property is. Okay, you could be in Graceland and not talk to Elvis. You could just be talking to somebody that got killed down the road in an automobile accident. Okay, But it drives me crazy when I see people, other investigators that are like, you see them on their thing, and as soon as they start talking to somebody on a spirit box or whatever at a location with a known famous person, they automatically assume that they're talking to that famous person. But I bring that up in because children are often the same thing. Mm-hmm. Children, spirits, you cannot take them for their word. You cannot. Yes, it's nice. I've seen where I had a family that got on the dowsing rods. They talked to their deceased mother. They confirmed a lot of specific questions, and it was a beautiful moment. They had closure. Does that mean that they really talked to their mom? I don't know. But they got closure from it. Mm-hmm. So who am I to say yay or nay? Mm-hmm. But again, those moments will happen, but then there's other moments where it don't seem to line up. And so I've just learned over the years, all these years, talking to many, many spirits, just don't take it as truth. Don't take it as word, as gospel.
Yeah, I've done, I use a word. It's not an Ovilus. I can't remember. I use a program with a word bank. And I've gotten to know my equipment very well. I use a K2 meter. I can usually tell if it's an intelligent hit or something after ruling out, of course, anything electrical that might be going through the room or whatever you might be picking up on, that kind of thing. So once someone gets to know their equipment pretty well, you know whether or not you might be hitting on an intelligence something or maybe whatever. How do you feel with the equipment that you use? Have you bonded enough with it where you can kind of tell that it's giving you not results, but giving you explanations, or not even explanations, but something that leads in the direction that you might be hitting something intelligent?
That's a good I like where you're going with this. I'll be honest with you. I feel like I don't think I can bond with the K2 meter or anything like that. I do think that, yes, you like when you use an EMF meter for intelligent responses, mm-hmm. you kind of can tell versus mm-hmm. when you're checking things out and you kind of know if there's hot spots, the base readings. Yeah. So there's a way to use it for sure. Mm-hmm. I feel like the only true thing that I've been able to gauge responses with is through the dowsing rods. Because when I'm holding them and I've just got my hands tucked in, I'm just tucked in and I'm not moving them. But it's like I can feel the energies. I can feel the weaknesses. I can feel the strengths when they're stronger, when they're weaker. I can feel when the shift in energy, when a different spirit gets on there. So I feel like that's the only thing I've been able to feel attuned to. Mm-hmm. But also, I think even beyond that, this is kind of what I'm going to go back to, is that the intuition part of it. As you do this more and more and more, you're going to gain intuition. So no matter what equipment you use, you will actually feel certain things. You'll be asking questions on an EMF meter, and then you're going to just be like, "Are you a female? Can you light it up?" Mm-hmm. Like you'll just get things. You'll get things to where you just feel like you need to ask them. The intuition will be there. Like the spirits will sort of guide you a little bit, and sometimes you can ask certain questions because you'll feel like, wait a minute, because sometimes you're asking questions, you're not really getting anywhere, and then all of a sudden you'll feel something. You'll be like, wait a minute, were you murdered? Mm-hmm. It's like, boop, and it's like lights up. Like, what? Okay. And now you're in a new direction, So intuition plays a huge part in that versus, I think, bonding with maybe the equipment other than the dowsing rods. I do feel like with dowsing rods, I really do feel like because I think it's because I'm holding the rods, the energy. I feel that more, a more intimate connection.
Mm-hmm. So I would presume you trust I'm going to use the answers that you might be getting from the dowsing rods. I think I just interviewed somebody yesterday. We did a demonstration with the dowsing rods, and actually, as bizarre as this is going to sound, her ghost kitty came through just out of the blue and scared one of her other cats. And she actually talked about that situation on her Facebook today, about how interesting it was that this thing, this cat of the past came through. But then I asked her a general question, and I said, just even before I even thought of the question, because I'm telepathic and I didn't say it out loud, her rods, I don't know what is yes or no, or how, if it's different for everybody, but they went zoop, really, really fast. She goes, the answer is yes. And I didn't even ask the question yet.
Usually when they cross, it's usually the yes.
Yeah, it went like that. It was like whoop, like really like rapidly fast. And I thought, so that's a question I have to ask you, because I said, give me a second. I'm going to think of the question. I already knew the question, in my head. And all I want is a yes, no, or maybe, or whatever. And then just whoop, she goes, well, the answer is yes. But I didn't ask the question. So what's your take on that? Does something already know what you're thinking while you're getting these answers? What's going on here?
Well, there's a bigger picture with the zeitgeist. I mean, like, there's a bigger world of spiritual activity. I mean, it's bigger than just our consciousness of when you and I talk and we're waiting to hear what the other person says, things like that. But you can also contribute it to when I guess the best way that maybe people might understand is whether you have a soulmate, whether you have somebody you really love, whether you have somebody that you've been around a while. But when you've been around a while, somebody or a long time, or a soulmate, your spiritualism sort of bonds and syncs up. And there's things that, like, all of a sudden you will know what they're getting ready to say. Mm-hmm. You will have those moments. And anybody that can ever relate to that, mm-hmm. What you just experienced, mm-hmm. the world of spiritual connectivity. And so there's things that we think of, there's things in these spiritual worlds that are out there. And like, we've done experiments before where I even had a guy from Wisconsin, like close to your neck of the woods. Mm-hmm. We had him on dowsing rods over the internet, mm-hmm. live, and I did dowsing rods in my hand, and we were live, and we were asking questions, and we had both of our rods, doing the same things, span of 700 miles apart or whatever, over the internet. Mm-hmm. So there is a bigger picture out there. This is where you get into like remote viewing and astral projection. There is a psychic world out there, like an energy world. We're all connected on that energy plane. If you want to get deeper into it, you can say that the three main parts of most all of us is connected of spirit, soul, and body. The spirit is almost like if you want to think of it like it's what connects us to the earth network, the spiritual earth network, and it harbors the soul. Mm-hmm. And the spiritual body and the soul are so connected, nobody can separate the spirit, body, and soul except for God. Now, I'm not trying to get into religion too much, mm-hmm. but God can separate the spirit, body, and soul, and eventually you can get like a heavenly spirit body, and that would connect you to the heaven spirit network. But we are all connected through that earthly spirit network with our spirit bodies right now. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, there is a certain degree of unsaid things that can happen and you can get responses for.
Interesting. Well, I was just so baffled because it's just like, I don't know, what if the yes really should have been a no? I mean, that kind of thing. I mean, it's like, woo, everything's going great. And when her ghost cat showed up, which she talked about, and I have to review the tape to see if I was, but you could definitely see her cat just absolutely freaking out all of a sudden, and she goes, "Oh my goodness!" And it's like, and I was going to preface this with you too, and I forgot to tell you that usually on every interview that I do with somebody, something happens. So you and I are doing pretty good so far, and I don't know, maybe it's just because we're both, I don't know, but I haven't
tried to let anything happen here, and my home's pretty secure. I do have a landing spot for ghosts here in this room though.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. I view my house as like a stagecoach stop.
Yeah.
Like on the old stagecoach days.
Yeah.
Like my room, and I made sure my roommate's room is protected. Mm-hmm. Like our bedrooms are protected. That's when you're most vulnerable. Even a friendly ghost can sap your energy and things like that, and affect your sleep and affect your health. Because a lot of people are like, oh, I got a friendly ghost, I don't care, we don't mess with each other. You don't realize that can also mess with you too. But anyways.
No, I'm going to add to that. So, I mean, I've had over 100 experiences. I've learned a lot in my time of doing this, and I have come to thinking, and I just talked about this on another show the other night. And the answer, or the thing that we were talking about was, if you know you have a ghost in your house, and it seems like a friendly ghost, do you just say, "You're welcome to stay here and take your shoes off and just stay out of my way," and whatever? Well, I could tell you stories about me offering my house to what I thought was a friendly ghost. Do they drain your energy? They can. Did this one either attract something? Because one night, and this was not sleep apnea, I never have had a situation, 3 nights in a row, whatever it was, tried to choke the heck out of me. And that's when the house went up for sale. And I said, don't follow me, but something followed me anyway. But so I'm going to ask you that question, because I have been marked. I have had portals, apparently, in some of my homes. I've been through a lot of different things. Let's whip her right back to you. You've been on these investigations. Mostly I hear, and I've had little scratchies in Zach Bagan's Haunted Museum on the back of my neck. But that's a long story. I shut that place down. Have you ever been scratched? Have you ever been choked? Have you ever been tossed and turned? I have been. So I know the feeling, and I know the difference. So what about you?
There's not a lot that happens to me physically too much. There has been times over the years. The journey of spiritualism takes a long time, and I've gotten to the point finally where I'm pretty good, like for the most part. I can control most everything. If I get a spirit here, when I say a landing pad, that means that they can come here. Once they get my attention, I know they're here. I'll be like, okay, and I'll break out the dowsing rods. I'll have a quick session with them. All they usually want to do is talk to me, and then I send them on their way. I don't let them stay here. I'm like, okay, and most of the time that works because they want to be heard, and that's it. So I send them on their way. But as far as like scratches, like I have been. In fact, I was shoved recently in season 2, episode 2, which is not out yet. But when season 2 releases here, anybody that watches episode 2, which will be probably the old hospital on College Hill, I got shoved. I can occasionally get touched, shoved, scratched. I do have protections. I have a crystal that I've had from that I built this whole necklace. I've got protections on it. I cleanse it and recharge it and reprogram it every 6 months. So, but it doesn't mean that I can't be touched or pushed. My protections are that they can't attach to me, so they won't go home with me, and that they can communicate. But scratching, pushing, these are all things that I don't fault the ghost, if that makes sense. because again, so many people are quick to assume that when they get scratched, when they get pushed, that it's a negative entity or that could be a demon or whatever. And what people don't realize is that spirits or ghosts, they don't have a physical body anymore. They're trying to communicate. They want attention. And they may scratch you just trying to get your attention, but it doesn't mean they're trying to hurt you. They don't have a physical body anymore. Like, if somebody took away your physical body, how would you know how to walk? How would you know how to touch somebody? Again, you don't have a physical body anymore. So that's what I'm saying is, like, you have to always look at those situations. But yes, I have been touched, I have been grabbed, and I always try to look at and see, is that actually negative, or is there a reason? And usually by the end of the investigation, we'll usually figure something out.
Why don't you tell people a little bit about, if they want to reach out to you, talk with you, get a hold of you, buy your book. Where's your book? Bring that book up again, would you?
Yeah, where is it? All right, so this is My Paranormal, Spirit Realms by Josh Morris.
Beautiful.
You can find it on Amazon. It's available in multiple countries. But, is it the greatest book in the world? No. But I never intended to be an author. Like, I have much respect for actual authors. I just knew that I had my theories, and I had basically, just to make a quick little story, I had this breakthrough on reincarnation. And once I kind of had this epiphany on reincarnation, then all my overall theories were sort of in place. And I'm like, okay, well, I wanted to just do a video, like a big video on paranormal theory. But it was going to be too big and too massive. And I'm like, oh man, I'm going to have to write a book. So it was almost like I had to write a book. So I set out and I took a year part-time and I wrote a book. Well, anyways, so it's okay. It's not the most scholarly read, but again, you're going to get some autobiography, some stories, some other ghost stories, and you're going to get a lot of awesome theory with some citations from some of the Bible, some other ancient scripts. But anyways, so, but you can find my book on Amazon. You can find me on YouTube under TEPs Investigates. You can find me on Paraflixx, of course. You can find me on Facebook. However, Facebook would be under the Everything Paranormal Show. Okay. I'm under there a lot, and also under my Josh Morris profile. If you see me kind of in a dark black and white photo, that's probably going to be my the correct channel. I'm on X and Instagram and even TikTok, but I'm not real active. I'm not one of those like constant TikTokers and X people, and I'm not good with social media, to be honest with you folks. I do Facebook, YouTube, and Paraflixx. That's really about the three biggest things that I can even keep up with. And do you have any website per se? No, I used to have a .com, and I got rid of it. It was just too much. Nobody really cared. And nowadays everyone wants to see like your Facebook or Instagram or whatever. So, well, I'll get this in the show notes, and so it'll be accessible for people from all realms here, including those listening to us on this show. But we will have you back. And again, thank you so very much for being part of this and being on the show today. Oh yeah, my pleasure, and I really appreciate you having me. It's been so much fun. Thank you for watching and listening to Paranormal Latte Podcast. We have been broadcasting on the United Public Radio and UFO Paranormal Radio Networks, 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans, as well as several listening platforms. The content, music, and creative sound effects as heard on Paranormal Latte Podcast are copyrighted and licensed commercially to Dr. Kelly Renee Schutz. Please do not reproduce in any manner without the express permission of Dr. Kelly Renee Schutz, Diamond Point Entertainment, LLC, Paranormal Universal Press, LLC,
Paranormal Latte Podcast and or any affiliated networks such as the United Public Radio and UFO Paranormal Networks. The opinions and information expressed by the guest hosts and sources as heard and seen on the Paranormal Latte Podcast are not necessarily those of Diamond Point Entertainment LLC, Paranormal Universal Press LLC, Paranormal Latte Podcast, and the United Public Radio and UFO Paranormal Networks, as well as their producers. Although the content of the shows may be interesting, the information and opinions within are deemed for entertainment purposes only. Subscribe to continue your enjoyment and interest, and thank you for making Paranormal Latte Podcast part of your day. Now that was good.